How bad are things getting at the White House? Even John McCain now comparing the Comey controversy to Watergate. We're going to take a look at how we got here and where we go next. Also, our panel of attorneys will join us to take a look at whether we are looking at obstruction of justice by the Commander-in-Chief. And then our former State Department spokesperson, P.J. Crowley, he'll join me for a one-on-one conversation discussing the diplomatic fallout from all this mess here when the U.S. president shares Israeli intelligence with, of all people, the Russians. Sure to cause some stress in that relationship. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us this Wednesday evening. Well, tonight we are looking at a White House in crisis. I even got the animation to prove it. Now, if the White House was hoping things would cool down, and I mean after day of this, you would think maybe, just maybe, well, not so much. After it was leaked, President Trump leaked classified information to the Russian foreign minister during their Oval Office meeting last week. Well, listen to how John McCain is now describing it.
I think it's reaching the point where it's of Watergate size and scale.
This is The Atlantic calls the leak worse than Watergate. And former Nixon White House counsel John Dean, who went to prison over Watergate, says the Comey memo is like the Watergate smoking gun tape. Now, this story and the crisis, it has put this White House in a position where it's not going anywhere. For the latest and for a brief review of how we actually got to this point, let's bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. And I think it just serves, I know for a lot of folks, it becomes white noise after a while, scandal after scandal. But they got to get the context where it wasn't one meeting with the Russians, it wasn't Comey just getting fired. It's all the tangential connections that seem to have a commonality when it starts and ends with Russia.
And we'll get to that in just a moment, Rich. There is breaking news. Reports are that the Justice Department has just appointed a special prosecutor in the Russia investigation, and that special prosecutor is former FBI Director Robert Mueller, who would certainly be seen as incredibly independent and not swayed by the politics of the White House or by Congress. More on that in just a moment. But this has been the only story on the minds and mouths of official Washington today. As Democrats ramp up their criticism, some Republicans are beginning to do the same on a topic clearly occupying, if not preoccupying, the President of the United States.
A commencement address to the United States Coast Guard.
Fight, fight, fight.
Turning into a defense of his presidency.
Look at the way I've been treated lately, especially by the media. No politician in history has been treated worse or more unfairly.
President Trump alluding to the weeks of chaos at the White House.
It seems like we are learning disturbing new allegations about President Trump, not just every day, but, ladies and gentlemen, every hour.
Most recently, that bombshell allegation that the president tried to interfere with a federal investigation, allegedly asking then FBI Director James Comey to back off the investigation into his former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. ABC and other outlets confirming that Comey wrote a memo detailing a meeting he had with Trump after Flynn was fired, in which the president allegedly said of Flynn, quote, "He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go." But the White House is pushing back, saying, quote, "The president has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone else to end any investigation," adding, quote, "This is not a truthful or accurate portrayal of the conversation."
It is obvious there are some people out there who want to harm the president.
Other Republicans on the Hill are cautiously responding to the allegations.
We should see those notes. Let's see Director Comey's notes. Let's have him testify before Congress. And based on the facts laid out by him directly and those notes, then people can make a determination.
Most Democrats not so reserved.
The president must be impeached.
The president's classified leak and the firing of Jim Comey, both major stories that could catastrophically derail this White House all on their own. But when put in context, both actually appeared to get even worse, as the when and where informed the why and add ammunition to those accusing the president of a cover-up.
January 26th, Acting Attorney General Sally Yates alerts the White House counsel National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has compromised himself and could be blackmailed by the Russians. The next day, January 27th, Comey has dinner at the White House with President Trump. According to Comey, Trump asked him for his loyalty as they talked about Comey staying on to complete his term as FBI director. Comey reportedly pledges Trump the truth, not loyalty. That was a Friday. The following Monday, January 30th, Trump fires Yates after Yates orders the Justice Department not to enforce Trump's Middle East travel ban. February 13th, The Washington Post reports what Yates told the White House. Flynn lied to Pence about Russia and was a potential blackmail target. 7 hours after the report is published, Flynn resigns. The next day, February 14th, Trump asks Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Vice President Pence to leave the Oval so he can speak with Comey alone. Then, referring to Flynn, Trump reportedly asks Comey, quote, "I hope you can just let this go." After the meeting, Comey memorializes his take on the meeting in a memo, just in case. March 4th, the Trump wiretap tweet. Part of a Saturday morning tweet storm, the White House scrambles for cover to prove Trump's claim and to demand investigations and action. Their efforts dealt a setback the next day, March 5th. Comey not only doesn't believe the wiretap claim, he asked the Trump Justice Department to flatly and publicly reject it. The White House is not pleased. March 20th, Comey testifies before Congress, and to the White House's chagrin confirms the FBI is investigating possible collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. March 30th, Flynn sends word to Congress, "I'll testify if I get immunity from prosecution." Less than a day later, March 31st, Trump tweets Flynn should ask for immunity, calling the case a witch hunt. It is of little consequence. Congress rejects any offer of immunity. May 3rd, just 2 weeks ago, Comey testifies before Congress again, this time on Clinton, Russia, and WikiLeaks. 5 days later, on May 8th, Comey seeks to ramp up the Russia probe, telling the Senate Intelligence Committee he needs more money and manpower to do it. The next day, May 9th, Trump fires Comey. The original White House rationale that it was over the Clinton email investigation will crack and crumble within days. 1 day later, on May 10th, Trump meets with Russia's foreign minister in the Oval and reveals classified information, propelling the White House into its latest Russia-related scandal.
And then we get to today. And along with Andrew Whitman, I want to bring in Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. The headline that Andrew just shared that came across just minutes ago as we came live to you is that Robert Mueller, former FBI director, has been brought on as a special prosecutor. And for anybody who says, oh, wait a second, why would Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, go along with this, given that he is completely a political appointee, obviously, of the president and a huge Trump supporter and all the rest? Well, remember, he had to recuse himself. This came from Rosenstein, who's the deputy AG or acting AG right now, and by all accounts is a pretty straight shooter. But nonetheless, it'll be very interesting as we learn the back channels of this, and we'll probably get a tweet within the hour from President Trump, his reaction to it. Nonetheless, it's funny, Dominic. This has, and we're going to break this into two different parts today, the political, which we'll get into next segment, then I'll have the legal with my attorneys coming up in a little while. Legally, it's a very long and arduous process and hard to prove. But politically, this seems to have a momentum here and a velocity to it that slowly but surely Republicans, not because they've either loved Trump, loathed Trump, but they saw a purpose to Trump, but they don't know day to day, hour to hour what's going to come out next. And it's becoming more and more untenable for them to stand by this. This has a feel. And it's premature. I don't even want to talk impeachment tonight here, but this has a feel that this is going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. And who knows how this president's going to react throughout.
Definitely that appears to be the case. I would venture to say, Richard, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, I don't think the president will tweet just right now, maybe later on tonight. I think he finally realizes the severity of the situation in terms of what he's dealing with, and that this is not going away. And think about this for a second, Richard. You know, the president deciding, Comey, you're gone. Think about this for a second. This would not have accelerated at a speed of 100 plus unless you made that move, Mr. President.
These are all self-inflicted wounds, yeah.
Thank you. Great word. All great word. All self-inflicted. And his demise, he has no one to blame but himself. And running to the Coast Guard graduation that was in the piece, talking about fight, doesn't help his purpose
and also
at all.
Playing the victim card, that he has been the most chagrined or attacked president and unfairly treated one, again, here doesn't play well.
Says the guy who made the previous president produce his birth certificate. So, you know, I don't think there's a lot of validity to that argument. But, you know, there's also a concern here that's beyond the politics and beyond what happens and how this all unfolds. There are significant questions about the president's processing within the White House itself and how he's running the government, and significant questions about how he handled information with a foreign government. And the White House has not provided any answers, any credible answers whatsoever. So getting answers is part of this too, regardless of where the chips fall politically, regardless of what the impact is going forward. That, I think, has been the White House's first mistake, that they've gone into bunker mode immediately and refused to even give a glimmer of any sunlight being shown into the White House.
And the one thing I just want everybody, because I know we always go in our particular corners, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, it's fake news, it's the worst thing ever. Just for 1 second, let's all just remember, Watergate was a third-rate burglary job, okay, and a botched one at that. What we're talking about, and evidence has been proven, facts have to come out, we've got to get corroborations, we've got to do all those things. But what we're talking about, think about this for a second, is a then candidate, now president, who he and his campaign, potentially, worked in concert with the Russians, an enemy to American interests, to obviously impact our election, what's supposed to be a free and fair election. And since the actual election, he has been using the levers of government and the office and the influence of it to try to undermine any investigation for the American public to get to the truth. I know you all know this. My kids had to learn this not long ago in school. We've got 3 branches of government, and in the brilliance of our founding fathers, they were supposed to be co-equal branches. What he has done in my lifetime, I haven't seen. One branch trying to take over what the other 2 do, and rules don't apply to the person who should put country before self, and it's been the 180 to this point. We got a lot to get to this evening here, and again, we've got breaking news here. We're going to go to a break with a statement from the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein here, and again, the quote, and I'll read it verbatim. Special counsel is necessary in order for the American people to have full confidence in the outcome. And that person is Mr. Mueller here, the former FBI director. He will be that special counsel. I'll get into the attorney's, the scope, his latitude, where he can go, where this investigation very well may go as well. But when we come back, Andrew and Dominic are going to stay with me. We're getting into the politics of all this because, as I said, there's the criminal portion of this, and then there's the political. And frankly, the political is even more important. We'll talk about where that goes right after this.